Hello, everyone. Welcome to Beyond Procurement by Powerweave, where we explore procurement's evolving role beyond traditional cost cutting into innovation, efficiency, and strategic impact. I'm your host, Deepak, and in today's episode, we tackle one of procurement's biggest yet often overlooked challenges: data quality. Bad data isn't just messy, it costs business millions in savings, operational disruptions, and compliance headaches. So, how do you fix those issues? How do you fix those data nightmares and unlock true value out of it? That is what we are going to discuss today. And joining us today is Karthik Rama, a seasoned procurement expert with 2 decades of experience across procurement, technology, and consulting. You all may know him as the Procurement Doctor. He specializes in identifying procurement challenges and prescribing practical solutions. He has helped numerous global companies turn data chaos into streamlined and strategic and efficient procurement operations. Karthik, welcome to Beyond Procurement and thank you for joining us today.
Hey Deepak, thank you. Thank you so much for the lovely introduction. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, before we go to the data part, I just have a question about the name Procurement Doctor. What triggered it, if I may?
Procurement doctors. Well, it's if you look at it, many years ago I was in the consulting business trying to set up a practice for an organization I used to work at, and basically as a part of the setting up of the practice, there was a report called the procurement diagnostic report that we built together. And I had this lovely client in the Middle East who I was walking through the entire report. Unconsciously, subconsciously, the report had stethoscope, all analogies related to unhealthy human body to their procurement function. And I was explaining this lovely lady about how the entire thing works, how the connection between the blood pressure of a human is connecting back to the bad data or whatever may be the case. And towards the end of it, she called me, "So you're like the procurement doctor, and I'm your patient, right?" And that thing led to another. She kept talking to, "Let me refer you to the procurement doctor," and all that, and it kind of caught on. And at first, it was I couldn't meaning get used to it, but after some time, it became a norm in the industry. People kept calling me by that name, Doctor Saab in India. Let me connect you to the doc, or by my friends in the US. You got to talk to the doctor. I keep getting these emails for a while, and then I eventually turned it into a brand and into a company because one of my customers like, "I'm not going to freelance work with you any longer. You should set up a company as us." So that's where the brand turned into a company about 4 years ago. And my mom always wanted me to be a doctor, and I really didn't want to spend so much time on studies. So this way, at least I get to be a doctor, a procurement doctor for us. So she's happy as well.
Life goals achieved.
Yeah, and I intend to become a real doctor as well. So I'm trying to do a PhD. Let's see, that's going to take a while, but let's see that's in the future.
Yeah, all the best for that as well. So yeah, that's a fascinating backstory. So now jumping straight into our episode, that's procurement data nightmares. What we have seen in our experience, and I'm sure you also must have seen that procurement leaders often underestimate the impact of poor data. What are some of the damaging procurement failures you have seen due to poor data?
Oh, there are a lot of horror stories I've heard in my practice over the years. Right, there's a lot of crazy stuff, but I'll talk to you about a few things that strike really hard in my mind. It's like bad data is like that white jaundice, if I might say, right? For a person where you don't even know that you're sick until it really gets bad. And most of the procurement leaders, think of it in that way itself. Let it happen, then we'll realize. They want to see the symptoms or want to see something go wrong, then they will go into it. So it's pretty typically like a silent killer, a virus or infection in your organization that you will not realize until it really happens. And it could be as simple as people don't realize it. And I might take this example a couple of times at least. Is like you have vendor A named as A vendor, right? A dot vendor, and such, and it creates chaos in terms of matching the PO to the invoice. and you're basically, it's almost like in medical terms, if you look at it, you're prescribing the wrong medicine to the wrong patient, basically. And you can imagine how big of a damage it could be. And it affects the bottom line, whether you like it or not. It affects the bottom line. See, our entire sourcing procurement process is all driven around understanding the spend and all that. And if that basic thing is not right, the entire your base is not accurate. You're missing on compliances, penalties, and all this stuff. So that's what I see. If data is not right, then you will not be set out to become a world class organization.
Got it. So, would it be apt to say that data has impact across not just the nomenclature, but the whole processes, maybe the compliance, maybe the discrepancies in the reporting that goes out to the stakeholders, even, right? And
Absolutely.
any experience that you can share that where you have seen a major goof up that has happened because of a very silly mistake in terms of nomenclature.
So one common thing. So we feel helping a customer with data is one of the most easiest and the most impactful, because the customer doesn't realize that there's so much hidden opportunities. Imagine you have one key critical supplier, like one of your big guys in a particular category, and they are going, you are categorize them the wrong way, meaning the supplier name is categorized in three different ways, and you're missing out on 10% of the spend. They already are big spend because they're one of your key suppliers, and you're not managing 10% of the spend, and your entire payment terms, discounts, compliances, everything is going as per the other vendor name. So you could look at that and see the amount of impact or scrutiny that you might have, or the amount of risk that you might be undergoing, right? Which you did not mitigate for because of that silly, simple alignment of having all the names together, right? One big guy, and you're naming him in four different ways, and you don't even know about it, and you're not you're missing out on, typically it's 10% spend that I've seen once you do all this, and they're like, wow, I didn't know this. I could have saved so much in the last couple of years, and they're actually very excited, but they're not excited enough to do the work or ensure that it's done the right way the first time. So that's what it is. That's one classic example that I've seen.
Great. So, like we discussed, I mean, there are some leaders who overlook it. There are some leaders who may understand the importance, the criticality of having poor procurement data, but not always they, take the initiative or are able to fix it. What are the top three challenges that you have come across that stops them or creates obstacles from them from fixing it?
Yeah, in global organizations, there are typically three challenges, which I've seen the major ones, right? Uh, and it's not having the structured data or having a messy system, right? Having a system that's not supporting the data, or the main reason for you to have a good set of data is to have visibility or having a real-time data. So it's basically inconsistent supplier master data, because master data, supplier data is the main thing for us if you look at it, right? And if you're having an inconsistent master data, like again, this time let's do like IBM, IBM Corp, I dot B dot M, right? And everybody, IBM Gulf, IBM EMEA. So you have so many different names, and it's not standardized, and it's showing up in that spend thing that I just gave as an example in the previous question, right? This is how it happens. Fragmented systems. You might have a ERP in one corner, the sourcing system in another, and then you have spreadsheets lurking all around managing your data, right? There are multiple ways to do the same stuff, right? And it's almost like, if I have to diagnose a patient, I'll ask for the most recent report, right?
Yes.
That a blood report or whatever. But I won't take a blood report that was done last year, and tell, okay, you are sick now. This is what you need to do. And basically, that's what the data is doing. We have old data or not inaccurate data or duplicate data, and we're expecting it to be real time and give visibility to our leadership, unfortunately, to teach us do better. And that's what is the norm. And if you look at it, it's if the other angle, Deepak, unfortunately, We cannot look at data in an isolated way. That's where we have that the procurement doctor's diagnostic assessment. What we have is we look at people, we look at process, we look at technology, we look at data. If these the first three things are not accurate, data is going to be messed for sure. People are not trained, they're not educated, they don't have the knowledge of how to use the system or how the data, how to populate the data. It's all a mess. Or if they don't want to follow the system, if it doesn't have the master data or the drop downs or the ability to capture the data, everything is pretext. Then there's no point in having the system, right? The process is where the system should talk to the process.
Right.
They should go hand in hand, or else it's going to be again bad data, process and policy. Now the what do you say, the data, at the end of it, it needs to be monitored. It cannot be just left it right there, assuming it to do well, right?
Yes.
And so it's all going hand in hand. Any one misses, it will show out in data, but it's more so post-mortem, unfortunately. And if you don't do a pre-mortem or have a regular check or a self-diagnostic assessment, you will not be able to fix it. You'll not be able to stop the bleeding. It'll keep going and going, and the infection keeps spreading. It's a never-ending problem that you'll have.
Got it. Got it. If so, to just summarize what you said, fragmented systems. I would say fragmented data across different people who are involved in the process. The fragmented processes itself, who don't speak
Yeah.
to each other. Yeah,
So the
it's
biggest challenges are most of the inconsistent data, master data, supply and master predominantly. Material master, all that is okay still. We can do it. But supply master is key for us. Fragmented systems, because they don't talk to each other, or tools, they're siloed, they're not integrated. And the other one is not having that real-time data as well. For you to make some sense out of the data. And we're looking at doing something like AI, chatbots, Copilot, and all this stuff. But this is the basic, and we are not even paying attention to it.
understood. In fact, that's one of the questions which I'm going to come back to later. But now that you have summarized these key challenges, how would you recommend procurement leaders start fixing this in a way that's doable and not overwhelming?
Yeah, so it's like, imagine like a triage, right? What do you do first thing when you find an emergency case, right? You first attend to the wound, you stop the bleeding, right? Similarly, we'll have to first look at the existing data, look at how you can cleanse it, gather feedback, and look at what are the, it's like kind of a miniature Six Sigma project, if I may say. Understand the roots, connected to either if it's people, process, data, technology, whatever, and you have to plug the gap there, or else it will happen again, right? And it's not just so I. If you call in a independent data guy, he will come and point the mistakes, fix the mistakes, and go back. But someone in your team, if you are just calling a data guy, someone in your team should sit and redo the process to fix that, right? So first you attend to the wound, stop the bleeding, and then apply, cleanse the data, whether it's deep duplication, removing duplicates between two systems, or not having in the system. These are the different things that you will see in the supplier world. And then you would apply external data intelligence to it, like whether it's market intelligence, DNBI, financial risk scores, or whatever. Then it comes across like a intelligent data that you could make sense of, and then you could anywhere have like proper outputs of close to 20% spend, 20% additional value out of the entire exercise as such. And the language, it would be the same uniform language across different systems or your process. Everything will should come across as the same, and that will help a lot. And you should ensure, like, as an organization, right, this has to be in your everyday process. Like, it should also be one exercise that you do on a recurring basis. It's not like you did it once when you implemented the ERP or the tool and then you've never done it after that. There has to be process or procedure around it so that you can look at it on a overall time frame to ensure that you're getting the right data. So most big organizations have realized this. They have a team in house who could be a metrics and reporting team or a market research team. They're given different names, and it's better for them to take a view at it so that the data is robust and it's good to use in real time basis as such.
Got it. So essentially, look for maybe a small section or piece of data which you clean, then slowly replicate the process, and also have an add one more process to ensure that this data fixing becomes a regular work. It's not a one time
Job.
because it needs to be maintained.
That's right. And you need to keep in mind whenever you're acquiring or selling off part of your business, if you're acquiring for the big guys, especially if they're pharma, it's done a lot. In a lot of the big companies, they acquire a new company. So data becomes a critical element for you to map. You cannot just in a haste do the merger, add the system. That is a chance of adding more messy data to your existing portfolio. So you need to take some time, have an expert look at it, and then do it the right way, or else you'll not get the right output out of it. You won't be able to get satisfaction running a bigger organization as such.
Yeah, that's an interesting outlook that you just brought. Even I never thought about it. When you acquire a new entity or when you sell off, I mean, it's usually the assets that you speak about, but the supply chain and the procurement data, at least haven't ever
Yeah.
read about or
So
discussed, heard the people discussing about it.
I'll tell you a little more around that, how I've seen problems in the past, Deepak. So one is your contracts get merged, right? More so acquiring. Sell off is easier because the pain is going to the other guy. You are making that going to the other
Yes.
guy, right? But if you're acquiring, you will need to change it. You'll have to change it. You'll create an entity in your ERP. They are running their shop in a particular way. Do you want to use their way of running an organization? ERP? Do you use their ERP? Do you make work in your ERP? If you're using their ERP, is the data getting replicated in your ERP? Is it getting is it the same data? So there are a lot of things when you connect to that, right? They call something the same thing in your company very differently in their company. So there has to be a common way of doing it. So there are a lot of big question marks there. People just go with it. Let's wing it, right? You wing it. After 3 years, you'll say, why is this not working? Maybe it's a bad acquisition, but it's
Yeah.
not a bad acquisition. It was a good acquisition. You're running it the wrong way. You don't have the right people to do it. So that's where you need a you need to give the right amount of anesthesia. You cannot give if you overdo it, it's dead. If you underdo it, then there's pain. So that's what this overall process looks like to you. The integration has to be done seamlessly so that it makes sense and you can utilize it in the future.
I like the anesthesia example. I just had a root canal, so I can truly relate to it.
I'm scared to go to the dentist, man. So
Yeah,
I can make that.
I have one today in the evening, but that's the least painful one. So I'm looking forward to it.
Fingers crossed.
So, yeah, now I'm going to come back to the question that you highlighted about the AI. Everybody wants, to implement AI. Yeah, there are a lot of merits on what it can do for you, and companies are rushing to do that, right? But without clean data, these systems fail. What are the biggest mistakes you have seen companies do when they want to implement AI, but they are not fixing the data quality issues first?
Yeah. So you see, in the last 15, 20 minutes, whatever we spoke, those are all basic stuff itself. They're not like advanced things. And unfortunately, we sitting here talking for half an hour, 45 minutes, still talking about the basic stuff itself. Because there's not enough light shed on it, or people don't care enough for it. They're more so running after the next shiny object, which is Gen AI or AI or whatever stuff, right? Without enough, what do you say, background or not. They're too impatient to do it deep enough, right? You got to go deep for you to learn, right? And you need to grow breadth-wise as well. If you go too deep and just keep going deep, you will be just a thin trunk of a tree which will fall off every time, anytime. That's what data is that I've seen, and this was told to me by a leader long ago, and I'm just reusing that analogy. Basically, what I see is it's going to be amazing. The next 5 years, I see that it's going to be amazing. But if you look at it, there's a lot. If you have a good, if you want to have a good AI, Gen AI, or AI adoption within your organization, I think we should have at least three things under your radar. Let's call it maybe the procurement doctor's checklist, what I've seen in the recent past. And this might evolve, and it might get better as we get better, get more mature as a procurement organization, process data all around. One is spend being undermanaged, right? That should be a key metric. Is because the more spend that goes in, the more use cases for AI, the more automation. So we got to keep driving that. Unfortunately, we are still want to say that some bit of it, even the easy stuff, also there's opportunity out there. The other one I've seen is which is spoken very little of is contract compliance or contract leakage or tying the contract till the invoice. That itself is a humongous task to a lot of the leaders right now. I know there are many CPOs we ask a question trying to which contract does this invoice tie to, and people just go around like headless chickens, right? So unfortunately, our processes are not made that way. Neither are the systems built that way. There's very few categories that have that nailed down, but they're aiming for it at least. At least they have it as a dream. So that should be something as the matrix in the Gen AI thing. Another one definitely is supplier performance score because if the supplier doesn't do well, you're gone as an organization. So they're basically if they your top suppliers or at least your major suppliers, top and major, critical and major suppliers, if they're not doing well, or you should be able to review them right on a regular basis, give them feedback, learn from them, and it's not just delivery times and quality and quantity parameters. That is archaic. Your ERP had the data forever. So that should be the tactical automatic stuff. It should be more about sustainability, compliance. Also, how do you do your innovations, improve the relationship, more so partnership. So those kind of performance measures. So these three things, if you have them in your radar, you will do better. And these three things will evolve to become something else in the future. So these are the three things that predominantly strike to my mind in particular. There are a million others that you could look at, but it's like if you do these three things religiously in the with the right intent, it's going to be it's like your proper health report. It's like you doing your steps and eating the right diet, right, and getting good sleep or having a good mental health. So it's somewhat like that. You can compare it to that, and it will do well for you as a overall procurement organization as such.
Yeah, yeah, I have an interesting analogy. If you do all those things, at least your cholesterol level won't be borderline. Slightly high, but never did not borderline.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. So we spoke about the challenges, the issues. Any instance that you can share where you have seen because a company or a leader has maintained the data beautifully, structurally, and they had reaped the advantage. Maybe could be savings, could be visibility, could be, you know, a very resilient operational process. Anything that you can share?
So I can't give you the name of the organization, but I'm sure I'll at least give you a couple of examples. One is where there was an organization based in the US, one of the biggest giants, and they've done this for a long time. Even before AI was there, they were using AI, so to say, right? And they didn't call it AI. AI was there for a long time, man. It's just been coined and marketed or branded the right way, right? Right now, a lot of the old features, even in SaaS, are rebranded as AI, right? All the old guys, they did a lot of the stuff like predict low level predictions or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So these guys had a state of the art contract database, which was tying back to all their data sources, whether it's invoices, POs, everything, right? And they had partnered with this amazing negotiation bot chatbot organization, and they've reaped a lot of benefits by just giving it the contract data right from because you as a category manager would know your 12 contracts maybe not by heart. You might not know all the line items, the ones that are spending more, all that. But a chatbot would know much better, has the memory for computer, so it will know more about what to talk to. And most of the suppliers would just sit around and think, "Oh, bloody, this is a chatbot. I can fool it. I can." And they went in the negotiation thinking they are winning against the chatbot, whereas the chatbot was bringing like 25-30% savings very easily by looking at all the contracts at one go and giving the most favorable scenario for the organization, at the same time making the supplier feel that he is winning. So this was at least 4, 5 years ago. What I'm talking about. and
Oh,
it's been around, and that's one example that was like I heard at least 3.5 years ago on a podcast. I read about this, I heard this, and I was so astonished that this is amazing. Similarly, I've seen whether people don't recognize this, people, unfortunately. A procurement organization that's running smoothly without much disruptions or not much conflict between teams, whether it's finance, procurement, legal procurement, any stakeholder procurement, running smoothly or having not much fights or disruptions is because of good data. We don't realize that. If there was a complicated process or the data isn't accurate, it gives a reason to have that put fingers at each other, right? If it's all crystal clear and you're talking with data, data-driven discussions or showing data, then the other person, the trust builds, the relationship is much more smoother, and we don't even realize it. Unfortunately, we just think that it's all you. It's not you. There's a lot more than you, right? And you're building that trust. You're giving them a lot of the times your stakeholder thinks, oh my God, procurement is always trying to reduce the price. But when you really show the use case with data and also with your domain knowledge, in that no, I'm not going to rashly reduce the price, but this is what my idea is. It gets sold much easier. But just talking in the air, it won't work out. So there are different ways that data really works. Your confidence with your CFO. I've done reporting in the past where procurement started reporting into the CFO, and CFO thought the CFO was like always thinking cost avoidance is not a savings, right? And how are we impacting the bottom line? We are not able to run our own basic organization properly. How will we support the overall executive management, right? And we found that there's a communication gap. So we started building a report to him in a balance sheet and how procurement is making the impact. Then the hair on his shoulder stood, and then he started paying attention. We were not talking about categories in spend. We were talking about the different, whether it is what kind of category, whether it's what do you say, what kind of. We spoke it in general ledger language. We didn't want him to learn our spend portfolio, right? Whether it's COGS, cost to go for goods sold, all that kind of stuff. So that's another thing, another story that I could say that made an impact. And then he started investing. He let us buy some cool procurement technology. He let us invest some more on specific people who could help drive more transformation within procurement. So these are a few stories that come to my mind.
certainly, these are impactful, and like you rightly said, it's hard or impossible to argue with data, right? And like you rightly said, it gives you the confidence, and I think the last sentence that you mentioned was quite impactful. It allows you to ask for the right resources, right people, right tech. Without this data, there's no way you can back that up. So it's not just simplifying your current processes, but also helping you build the roadmap based on data. So that's a very powerful point that I can take away from that. I mean, I don't know if this is possible, but this is just another thought that came to my mind. Because you mentioned metrics. If I were a procurement leader, if I had to look at my system and say where my data accuracy or my data cleaning process is, are there any metrics or any such parameters that I can consider, evaluate, or maybe just take a look at my current setup to identify my data is 25% accurate or 50% accurate? Are there any metrics that I can keep in mind to look into that?
So it would again tie back to what we spoke initially, right? It's the supplier master data is one key thing, right?
Okay.
Whether you're able to get, so it's those same three things that you would apply. Unfortunately, every procurement is not like finance. It's not like debit what comes in, credit what goes out. Here's the balance sheet. It's across anywhere in the world you go, even in India, US, Mexico, anywhere you go. That's the standard rules that they have, right? Little different in the Middle East because they run it. They don't have the interest piece, but still the accounting process is the same. In procurement, people run their own kingdom in their own way.
Hmm.
So I cannot have a standard across the globe. I can have a descriptive definition that it's going to be like this, right? But at the end of the day, it depends on how complex or whether you have a process or you have a complicated process, whether you have a system or you have a system which is overly customized. So all these factors, I mean, they have people willing. So I'm seeing in a few other countries or even in India, old organizations where the average age of the employees or the team members is around 45 years. They've been there doing a lot of work. They've traditionally used offline work. Now all of a sudden you're making them get on, and they've been doing that for a long time. So it's a very different way to manage that, right? To convert the data, and also it's very different across the globe. So I wish there was no one size fits all. Unfortunately, that's what keeps me going in procurement as well, because no 2 days are the same, man. Every customer is different, every industry is different, every region is different. Everyone does it differently. So that's why once I got to procurement, I didn't want to get out of it, because other work that I used to do, it seemed like after a year or 2 years, you've done all of it. Here, you've never done all of it, and I can never be 100%. So that's the reason I took the procurement doctor's approach, where you are diagnosing, asking the right questions, and learning. After learning, this is the learning we are applying our patented methodology of how they could get fixed. It cannot be the same fix across, unfortunately.
Got it, got it. Yeah, so it's people, processes, platforms, the supplier master data.
Yeah.
If maybe there is a weekly check or a process to weekly just ensure that there it's clean or some part of it is clean, maybe that could be a good starting point there.
Or you have a so few companies. What happens? The big guys have a vendor management team within procurement. You guys don't have it at all. They're expecting procurement to do it. If you're expecting procurement to do it, give them the tool set of how to do it, have rules around it, or have controls in the system. So these are the things that you should have a subsection of your policy of how a vendor needs to be created. You get what I'm saying? What happens?
Yes,
What triggers go on when a new vendor is coming, or this change to existing vendor?
got
So
it.
these things kind of control it. But with this, also mistakes are being done, unfortunately. But these are few things for the small and medium guys to think of. Right now, procurement does everything, but he is more so concerned with invoice, purchase orders, contracts. Contracts less so, maybe if it's a small organization. They just want to get the payments done, so get a supplier, get it over with, right? So the mind has to expand more than that. Think a little bit more of how, like the CEO, me as for my organization, I'm thinking I'll have to be 100. I'll be 100 people by the end of this year or mid of next year, right? For that, I need to have my operations manager think like that. Na?
Agreed.
I cannot just let him, Arey, Karthik, let the problem come, then we'll talk. If he's talking that, then I fail as a leader. So it's important for the CEO also to engage his procurement. Unfortunately, the lot of the companies, the CEO himself is doing the negotiation. If it's a small company, he's like, I'll reduce the price. You just release the PO. So you should
Got
handle your get your team more strategically aligned or whatever. They are more so try to do the strategic alignment with their sales guys, finance guys,
yes,
but they miss out on procurement, unfortunately, because
yes.
that never comes in their mind. So this is what is like making us still look for the seated. We're still talking seated at the table, and all this is because of such kind of a mindset. And neither is procurement trying to come out of the shell. Maybe these small companies, a person unfortunately doesn't have that mindset or hasn't seen that. Oh, I can do an impact. He's like, maybe this is just my job. I have to do this. So that's where the problem lies, unfortunately. And not many people talk about it. People talk more so about the wonderful, great things and all this because that's what sells. But the reality also has to be spoken. Unfortunately, I'm always the bearer of the bad news. People don't like me for that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you can be the good doctor, not always.
Yeah, yeah. I have to tell the reality, right? I cannot tell you that if you're dying, I cannot tell you, oh, you live another 50 years. Doesn't make sense. So you got to give the right feedback as well. That's important.
Agreed, agreed. So yeah, I mean, we pretty much covered a lot of things, and you kind of answered a few of my next question as well. So one key one that I need to ask you is because you mentioned there are fragmented system and multiple systems. So many procurement teams struggle with real time data integration across systems. They have ERPs, maybe supplier portals, maybe e-procurement solutions. What is your go-to strategy for integrating procurement data without major disruptions? Is there a master system that you consider? How does that work for you?
Yeah, firstly is like we told, right? You have to attend to the wound, clean the data first, then think of what you want to do. There are different variations depending on the organization itself. You can get the spend data, invoice data for that particular organization, analyze supplier data as well, analyze that, tie it back to your contracts, right? And see which are your if you have a categorization within your vendors of critical vendors, major vendors, minor vendors, or whatever. Look at who's sitting where, how much percentage is applying where, right? The criticality of the spend. If one of those suppliers didn't perform, what's going to happen, and things like that. It's always preferable to have a master system and then have slave systems against it. When you call it a master system, it's ideally all the supplier data is first getting created in that master system, and then it gets replicated to the child or the slave system, right? And the other important thing is if you have a front end system, whether it is a Coupa or Ariba or whoever it is, where the data is getting inputted and the source of truth is getting replicated in your ERP, right? So it has to be one way itself, or the inputs should always be coming one direction. That is typically your front end system. We don't want people to be fidgeting and all, have the ability to fidget in all the systems. Like the slave system, you have three slave systems, one master, and then your front end what's SaaS product, right? So you should allow them to only make changes in the SaaS product, not in the master system, not in your other ERPs, or else everybody will be playing from everywhere. It's going to make the integration much more complicated. The traceability to go back and forth and all that, it's going to be much more heavier on your integration, your master data, the overall complication of the system as well. And also have a broad open mindset when you're doing this cleanup of, I would say, the classic Elon Musk way. He tries to trim as much as he can, right? So there's this example in he's got data getting extrapolated from all parts of his Tesla car, okay,
Yeah.
Cybertruck, and at the end of 2 years, he took out a particular of the which one, man? I forgot this example. So I think there was one product, one feature that he had in the car, and I should do it. I'll research and send it to you. You can apply it, add it to the podcast. So one item has not been one feature on the passenger seat was not used for the last year and a half. After a year and a half, he just took it out of production and he removed that feature and he saved millions of dollars because no one used it as per the data. It was used once or twice. That's the power of data. And he didn't even go and ask his board or his engineers, come, let's sit, let's take a decision, let's do the no, nothing. He just took it off. No one realized it and he saved millions of dollars. So that's how data should be used. And you should have that mindset when you're having like three different entities. And like everybody thinks I am a special Sally. The reason I am doing it this way is because I am running IT as a category. The other guy who says I am running radioactive waste is my category. It's a very complicated one, so I need to do it in a particular way. So everybody thinks they are special, but you don't know that they collecting the data. It's never been used. It's just for getting populated, creating a lot of data dump, but no real insight. So you need to relook the entire thing and see whether this data really makes sense. Because there's an amount of effort, right? Whether it's 2 seconds, 3 seconds, even if it's a bot entering the data, whatever, it's expenditure. Why do you want to collect it if you're not going to use it? Even in your onboarding process as well, we are asking supplier a million things. Are you even cross verifying it? For
Yeah.
instance, I'm asking, are you certified diversity supplier? You said yes. Oh, wow. You reported out. Is he really? Did you even check? Is there a way to check the certificate? Has he? Is it a real certificate? Does the supplier really want to answer, let's say, compliance questions? He'll say no. Will anyone say no to even participate? They'll say yes. If he said yes, did you check? Is it really a yes? There's no ability, nothing. It's a tick mark activity, and we just dump populating the data. For so it should you should think of it of how the data is getting used and also getting populated. It'll be done when you're looking at it at a much more granular level. Unfortunately,
Yeah, nicely put. I think out of the three P's, the people, the mindset, and the strategy is what can drive all three, or else, everything are
it's
bound to
it's a
fail.
culture, my friend. Deepak, the other thing is it's a culture. If you have it in your culture, it happens effortlessly. But if it's in your culture, it's not driven as part of your culture. Then your culture is to create messy data. It's how you
Yeah.
run your shop. It's not like a one-time thing. you have a paracetamol and the fever is gone. It's not like that. It's more like you doing exercise, being fit. That's what managing a data is. It's not like when you fell sick, then you go to the doctor and get an injection or whatever. It's a ongoing thing, like being fit or
Yeah.
being healthy. So
It's the daily
unfortunately,
routine that matters.
that's right. It should be like going to the gym or whatever. But we don't look at it that way, unfortunately.
Great, great. I'm done with my questions for today's session. There was one final one, but I believe I already know the answer. That is going to be, if a procurement leader could fix just one data problem today, what would that would have the biggest impact? What should it be? And I believe that should be the supplier master data, if I understand you after all the complete session, right?
So if I had my stethoscope on and I'm putting it on a procurement patient right now, it would be first thing is to treat the supplier master data. It's like the what do you say the heartbeat of the organization. If your heart isn't well, the entire no blood is supplied. The entire things is outdated, right? So it's basically having that. It's and your contracts are like your nervous system of your organization. But for you, your heartbeat is equal to your supplier master data. So, and we don't pay enough attention to it, unfortunately. So that's where and you got me right. It gives you the, like, if you talk to the examples that we spoke previously also, it gives you more negotiation power, more compliance, it gives you more visibility into your spend, your contracts. Your suppliers should basically be your friends for you to, like, during times of COVID, people who didn't care about the suppliers didn't care about them. They were answering to the guys who they had a personal relationship with. For instance, if my supplier was my friend, I told, yaar, kar de yaar, please, I'm going through this trouble. Please help me with this. They would, hey, it's Karthik, come on. This
Yeah.
this is what worked.
Yes. No tech, no AI can replace relationships. Nothing.
That's right. So that's where and you have to have the right. How would you maintain the good master data? It's not a record of a patient. You just have a number and a name. It's not that. You need to have the details against him so that you know him. When you talk to him, you talk to him like you know about him, what the value that is driving, what is delivering, how you could grow together as well.
Yes.
So that's where the supplier innovation could be done for you to grow as your supplier performance and innovation and doing better. If you're working together and getting better together, I've seen situations in the past, Deepak, where we're doing a supplier performance review, and he's so happy that he wants to. He's facing an issue in catering to one of our needs. So he's talking openly, telling Karthik Bhai, this is what I'm having an issue. I don't know. This is your knowledge of the industry. Is there a way to get around it? So I think, why don't we try it like this? It's a co-innovation. And then he's like, wow, I'm going to sell this to other customers of mine. So here's my deduct in the price. I'm co-innovating with you. Today, can you expect that happening with any of your suppliers? I don't know. It should be ideally with all your suppliers. You should have this kind of a relationship with all your suppliers. This cannot happen overnight by just giving them an award or calling them and saying, thank you for being a supplier. It doesn't work. It happens with putting that relationship, talking to them, showing them that you value them, you really value them. So authenticity is important. Only then all of this will work. And master data is the first step of the entire block. Supplier master data.
So, I think that's all for today. I mean, we had a great session, and thank you for all the insights that you shared, and thank you for joining us today. So, I am sure that this won't be our first and only one. We'll have more such sessions like this. But before we end this, I would like you to give a quick introduction of what you do, where you are based out of, and the best way to reach out to you for people who would be watching and listening to.
Sure. So LinkedIn is my go-to way to reach out to me, whether you DM me or whatever. I'm always on that. My wife is angry the amount of LinkedIn I use, right? Um, but that's the place that you'll find me regularly. And I run an organization by the name Procurement Doctors. We are a bunch of close to 40 people based in India, US, and the Middle East. And we are basically here to write prescriptions to cure your procurement woes. Okay, and it could be anything within procurement. The more unknown, the better for us because we learn from you, right? But we've done in a lot of industries. We do so, like we spoke in the interview as well. People, process, data, technology. These four areas, we ready to do anything for you, and we have different partners which is going to be a pharmacy section in our medicine cabinet, who we recommend depending on your illness, right? So because we don't vouch to say that I know everything. Like in terms of the data, my team has a certain level of capability to do the data cleansing approach and all that. But beyond that, if there's a need for you to do it much quicker, much so I have a partner of mine who I would engage, and we'll come together and do it. So any of these areas, we'd love to help, and it's basically a passion for us because my entire team, the average years of experience is 8 years at least, and most of them are from procurement background who are learning data or they've learned technology. So they are age-old procurement guys who worked with me 20 years ago, and they're joining back, and so that's how we built this team together. So we are a bunch of passionate people, and it's a pleasure to be here, my friend. Thank you so much, and I hope we do more of these podcasts because I have this inert feeling that there are a couple of ways of charity, Deepak. One is you give money and do the charity. That's one way of charity. But this kind of charity where you're sharing your knowledge with people, enabling someone to become better, is much more satisfying according to me. So that's where I do a lot of these podcasts or keynote speeches or whatever you may say. So that kind of gives me more satisfaction that I am able to contribute to the society as such, especially procurement community because it's been my life for a long time.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you, Karthik. Thank you again.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much. Best of luck.